All right, you ready?
I can't get the cactus in. Oh well.
Okay, what's the why do you need the cactus in? Let me see this cactus. Is this your new
No, it's just
let me just see it.
it's just. I thought it just.
What? It just looks like a penis. Well, the fact that the cactus is against a just a white wall. Oh,
I
it's so
know,
sad looking.
but look, I got a fish tank. You see that?
Why can't you just be
Oh
like all
shoot!
the other Oh, Sam, what is going on?
Why
Um
can't it be like just the other people?
the other therapists and have like the silver balls that bounce and really bad art. It's funny. You just have you're in a very nondescript room. Is this your office? And you just have a
This is
little
my
cactus.
office. How do I show you my office? Just do this.
You don't have to show me. I think I know what it looks like. Yep, that's exactly what I thought it would look like. Just white walls,
I took that
blinds.
picture.
Interesting.
Here, no, I'll show you. It looks
That's the
simple.
couch that your clients sit down
I
on.
usually, yeah, they sit there, but I sit there. Um, but it's a pretty big room. I can have enough for family therapy. Uh, my bonsai tree. What else? I took that
One cactus,
picture.
one bonsai tree.
I took that
We're
picture.
already recording.
Um, free chocolates.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's a good touch.
Uh, yeah, the nice two little fishies in there.
I think there's too much in your office for people to concentrate on their problems. There's a lot of
Oh,
stuff
there's a
going
lot.
on.
Look at yeah, there's a lot of clutter, but I like it being cozy.
So Sam Louie and I go way back. Here's what's interesting about Sam. So I grew up in an all white neighborhood. Sam and I are roughly the same age. Sam grew up in a predominantly all black neighborhood. I grew up skateboarding. Sam grew up playing basketball. We both loved hip hop, and the way that I met Sam was I was at church and I didn't have many friends, and this guy, we started talking. He's like, "I got to introduce you to my friend Sam. He's also Asian. He's also going through a divorce, and he's also studying to be a therapist." And I remember that's why he brought me to your house, and that's how we met. And then from there, um, I remember the moment that Sam asked me for my phone number, and it was kind of a weird moment because it's kind of strange for guys to because Sam and I are older, and we're kind of we have our one foot into kind of like the old generation where asking a man for a phone number might be kind of weird. And I remember it was kind of forced. It was like it's almost like you almost demanded it. It was almost like if you get nervous instead of being polite asking. I think you threw me your phone and you were like, "Give me your phone number," and I was like, "Oh shit!" And from then on, we moved in together, became friends, and we went through divorce recovery together as we were working on ours toward licensure. And here's what's interesting, and you can see this. You can see this literally on YouTube. Now, if you look at Sam, he became the shirt and tie guy, right? The classic therapist.
I only dressed up for you, man.
No, come on. You
I
got
don't
slacks
normally wear
on.
such a nice shirt. No, I
Oh,
got
come on.
jeans on.
100% you got slacks on. And
Jeans, baby. But
he's
they're
got an
nice jeans
office.
because of you.
He's got an office. He's got a full practice. And he's in Washington. He's I mean, you're the classic therapist, right? Look at your book displayed, just perfectly. And then here's me, and also look at the hair. Sam has no hair. I've got this long hair, curly, and I'm in my garage, playing with my phone and just like no practice, playing with my quote unquote
Yin
Legos.
yang, baby. Yin
Yes.
yang.
So I'm just saying, it's just really interesting how we have so much in common, but also as therapists we took very different roads, and here we are, and there's a visual, the Sam with his cactus, and me with my little book posters.
Yin
So
and
Sam,
yang.
let's talk about shame. One of the things that Sam's passionate about in his brand new book, Passport to Shame. Congratulations, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Oh, you got it. They
Um,
finally sent it to you.
yeah, they just sent it to me right before this, and you know
Oh,
what I found
nice.
interesting? Just in the beginning, it talks about how there are more than 300 words in Chinese for shame.
Yeah.
let's start with that. So Sam's Chinese American, I'm Korean American. Tell me about shame and you growing up with shame.
I think one of the biggest areas of shame was just keep in mind you were born in the US. I was
Oh,
born
no,
overseas.
that's not true. I was born in
Oh
Korea.
no.
I came here when I was 3.
Oh, okay. You came here when, do you even remember being an immigrant?
I remember because we landed in Columbus, Georgia, 76, and I remember the feeling because I was like my daughter's age. I remember the feeling of going into restaurants and not being wanted. I remember the feeling
Okay.
of that. So I don't remember what was said, but I know there was a lot of racism, and I remember us leaving restaurants and being confused and kind of feeling this like um, the of not being wanted. That's the feeling I felt. When did you come to America?
I think it was closer to 4 because I was
Oh, okay.
slapped into kindergarten shortly thereafter. But I do remember being really young on a bus. Everybody's black with
Yeah.
my grandmother, and like not necessarily feeling unwanted per se, but wasn't sure where I fit,
Mm,
right? I'm
mm,
on a bus, everybody's black except my
right.
grandma and me. And then keep in mind, grandma's speaking to me in Chinese,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm trying to speak back to her in English, knowing she's not going to understand me because I just wanted to make sure everybody on the bus would treat me as
The
an
same.
American. I don't
Right.
know how
Right.
they viewed me, but I did not want to be viewed as a foreigner.
So yes, I agree. But my bus was white, and my grandma was also with me. Did your grandma come because your parents were working, so they needed your grandma to kind of raise you, take care of you? Is that why your grandma was here?
Well, my dad was able to get sponsored by a restaurant just south of Seattle to be their head cook. I know
Mm.
that sounds like a glamorous position, but it really isn't
Well, you said
because all
cook, not
that meant
chef.
was,
It's not a
well,
head chef, head cook.
head cook, head chef. It didn't matter to me because at the end of the day, he's slaving away in these kitchens, and my mom's working at a different Chinese restaurant as a waitress. But there's
Mm.
no such thing as a paid vacation.
Right.
There's no health insurance, so they're always working, and
Yep.
they're not making a lot of money working at these, you know, restaurants.
Wait, this is the 80s, right?
Parents, wait, they moved here 70, mid 70s. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So,
yeah.
same story. My parents, my dad was not a cook. He was pulling telephone cable, working for GTE, and
Oh
my
wow, he was
mom.
making some money.
No, he wasn't.
Government employee,
Manual labor, and
government
then
employee, government employee.
my mom was no, my mom was making egg
Oh,
rolls and
okay.
shit, selling in a little hamburger stand. But they were gone constantly, and so it was like my grandma who was home. And I remember I have this memory of when I was like 10. My grandma was washing me and my brother in the bathtub, and Koreans, when it comes to scrubbing, it's just no joke. And she would scrub me so hard with it's like when you go to women who go to Korean spas, they're like, dude, these Korean grandmas are fucking aggro, like they'll scrub you, like, yeah. And so my grandma used to scrub me with this thing that was like a fucking stone. And one day she had both of us in there. We were way too old to be in the bathtub with our grandma. And she would be scrubbing us, and we're screaming and stuff. And it was right next to the front door, and our friends heard us, and they're like, "Oh my
Oh,
god, you guys, our white friends heard us," and they're like, "You," and then they started making fun of us for at
hmm,
10 years old being in the bathtub with your grandma. Like, what's wrong with you guys?
hmm.
So,
What about language? Any making fun of the Korean language
oh, all the
when
time.
they heard it? Oh,
Yes,
okay.
the smell of kimchi in our house. Um, they sell kimchi at Trader Joe's now, and I don't know how I feel about that because it's
I
become
know.
so, what I'm saying, like Korean barbecue. When you go to Korean barbecue, it's
Yeah,
mostly
Korean
white
food
people.
is like
I
Korean
know, but
barbecue is now in vogue.
dude, when I was growing up, I had crushes on little white girls who kind of like me, and then they would come into my house and be like, "Hell no, what's that smell?" And then they would never
Hmm.
come over again. And speaking of shame, so I, like you, had a lot of shame growing up in the 80s in a very white world, being this little Korean kid, right? So tell me about your
Well,
shame. Keep going.
I wanted to, because we're talking about the differences and similarities, can I read a quick paragraph from my book in the
Yes, of
beginning?
course. Of course.
This
Is this
is,
not a poem?
yeah, right.
This is not a poem,
No,
Sam.
no,
This is
this is
okay.
not the poem.
Okay, because
Uh,
Sam does poetry. His poems rhyme. They're a little, they're a little different. So
some of them don't rhyme.
oh, I didn't
As
know
I
that.
got
Okay.
better at as I got better at the poetry, I said, I can't make these rhyme. I'm trying to force it.
Yeah.
So
When
here,
the poems don't rhyme, they're actually better. I just didn't want to say anything.
now it's
But
considered art.
yeah, it's now it's
Okay,
abstract
so
art.
here's this first paragraph. I hate myself. This was one of
Mm,
my earliest thoughts as a Chinese boy in the United States. I wasn't white like those I saw on television, and I wasn't black like those in my neighborhood. I was an Asian immigrant. I was
mm,
an outsider, a foreigner, the other. It was 1976, and I was 4 years old. I hated looking different, speaking differently, and having different customs and traditions from
mm.
mainstream America. I say mainstream America, but I should also include Black America, which
Yeah.
also part of the environment I grew up in.
Yeah, so and I can relate to you on so many levels. And so with that, how does, a 10-year-old a Chinese boy how does he process this? How did you um how did you internalize this, not fitting in and trying to be American and all of that?
So it's, how we always tell kids and even ourselves as adults, be proud of yourself,
Mhm.
right? Be proud of
Mhm.
yourself, be proud
Mm.
of where you came from.
Right.
And that took a lot of time until probably
Last
middle
week.
school.
Yeah.
That too. But
Hmm.
like middle school, I started having a little bit of ethnic pride because there is this thing called ethnic self-hatred, right? As
Sure.
you said, or as you heard earlier, I'm hating the fact that I'm
Yep.
Chinese. I want to
Yep.
scrub. I look in the mirror, I want to scrub. Like I was trying to, at one point I said, like, can this yellow skin get actually
Mm.
scrubbed off? No, it
Yeah.
can't. Um, and it wasn't until I found my basketball, there was an Asian basketball association in my neighborhood, and I joined it. And now I'm surrounded by not only other peers my age, but also the coaches. They were
Mhm.
a generation just ahead of me, but they were what I aspired to. They went to college,
Right.
they had quote regular jobs, professional jobs, as opposed to immigrant jobs. Because prior to meeting them, everybody was what I knew from my parents and my parent circle. Okay,
Mhm.
everybody is working at a kitchen, a Chinese restaurant, maybe one person works for the post office, but very blue collar jobs, and
Yeah.
you didn't see beyond what you knew.
Right.
So once I was immersed in this all Asian basketball program, boys, girls of various ages, from first graders all the way to high school. And I'm kind of right in the middle, starting right around fifth or sixth grade. I'm like, wow, I can actually feel like, at least in this circle, I'm not as ashamed of who I am because, hey, we're all the
Mm.
same now.
Wait, was it because of your ability to play basketball?
No, because we're all Asian. We're all Asian,
Oh,
part
you
of
guys
this
are all
Asian
got it.
basketball league, and
Oh, it
you're
was all
playing
Asian. Got it.
against
Right.
our coaches are all Asian, all the
Okay.
volunteers are. So then when you're meeting all the parents, some of the parents are more Americanized. So
Mhm.
they're talking to me in English, which is,
Mhm.
whoa, what's going on? Because remember, all the adults I knew can only speak Chinese. So to
Right.
have people speaking to me in English and calling me by my name, like, wow, this is just awkward. Hi, Mr. Wong, hi, Mrs. Wong, Mr. and Mrs. Chen. Like you get to know them on a relational level, which was a bit, that was the other piece that was missing, is because my parents were working and there's a language barrier. The relationship was uh, just wasn't there.
Yeah. So, do you think, because the other thing that you and I have, and I think, I don't know if you believe in addiction being, in our blood or not, is kind of like the addictive gene. and I know
Yeah.
with you, and also for me, when I was around 12, I was exposed to a lot of images way too early. And I remember, asking my friend to steal his brother's Playboys and penthouses, and just being
Mm.
obsessed with women and nudity. And I was, I was just a little kid. And I think it was my way of numbing. I think it was my way of, partly I wasn't supervised. So, I was out till 2 a.m. I was doing all sorts of shit with the neighborhood kids. But um, I wonder if because that was the first introduction to anything pornographic. It was the
Hmm.
80s, around 12, right? And you were also, I mean, in your book, you were also exposed to that,
Yeah.
right?
Scrambled TV, but I wanted to get to your first point before I forgot. 3 generations of addictions,
Mm,
at least 3 generations. My
gambling, lots of gambling, it says in
grandfather
your book.
was always gambling,
Yeah.
aunts and uncles gambling. Some ended up in divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, my brothers have their own issues of whether it's spending or sexual things, just like myself. So I do
Mm-hmm.
think not that it was like there's a gene per se, but the environment was not one of emotional intimacy.
Right.
And oh, keep in mind, my grandparents were arranged marriage, so that's
Mm,
probably why Grandpa was always the only image I have of him is Grandpa standing at the bus stop, ready to take the bus to the horse race track in
mm.
Seattle.
Oh, it's a gamble.
Yeah, yeah, to gamble. I
Yeah.
mean, this was a
Yeah.
big deal, horse racing. And people would say, well, horse racing, this is a popular sport in Chinese culture or back in Hong Kong where my parents grew up. It's really not that big of a deal, but it's just another way to kind of disconnect.
Yeah.
So I do believe that level of connection kind of passed down through the generations to me. And like yourself, I was telling my therapist the other day, and it finally hit me. I don't know why. I don't even know if it hit me when I brought it up in the book. But I mentioned to my therapist earlier last week, gosh, there are so many hours, partly because we're dads now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's hard for us to fathom our kids being unsupervised, right? This whole
Right.
concept of latchkey kids that
Yeah.
the 80s grew up in, it was kind of a perfect storm. You got women going off to work. My mom was now going
Yeah.
out in the workforce. There weren't a lot of daycare centers if people
Mm,
could even if they could afford it, right? They didn't have a lot of after school programs and
right.
things like that.
Right.
So kids were just left unsupervised.
Yeah.
And I
Crazy. We just came
for
home
better or
when
worse,
it got dark outside, and we were, drinking out of hoses and just fucking, yeah, wild, man, animals.
the positives is we learned to be self-sustaining, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I could just I could just use my imagination. I don't need a lot of money to have fun, right?
Right.
Right? We could just figure things out. We could go out with a stick and whack through
Yeah.
some sticker
Yeah.
bushes, create a
Right.
trail, and feel like we're adventurers.
Sure. Yeah, just
Um,
get on our bikes and yeah, just go out, do shit. I remember digging tracks and playing little race cars and building Legos. And so you're right, imagination, creativity, not by choice, but because we didn't have anything else then.
yeah, and just the sense of autonomy, right? If you wanted to do something, you had to do it. There's no parent guiding you along,
Yeah.
encouraging you along. I
Yeah.
remember I was 12 and I was like, gosh, we don't have a lot of money, but I want things. How do I get things? And I remember at the back of this comic book, you could sign up, and if you sold things, like if you sold posters or whatever you sold, you earned credit so that you could get a toy or whatever. So
Mm.
I remember
Mm.
12 years old, I'm knocking on doors, trying to sell these subscriptions to things with no supervision. Like, how do you even do this, right? Like, you're just out there doing it. But so those
God.
are the positive things. I think the more impactful things was no adult supervision.
Yeah.
I'm also in a bit of a crime-ridden neighborhood, so there are a lot
Mm.
of emotions I had to stuff. And
Like
I did
what?
not,
Like fear and being
yeah,
afraid, or yeah.
I was the oldest of three, so I had to kind of tend to my two younger brothers. So imagine parents are just gone working at night. And that's when I started biting my nails. If we call something addictive or
Mm.
compulsive, I started just gnawing on my nails.
Wow.
I didn't realize this till more recently at 8 years old, just gnawing on my nails. And my therapist like, well, what's that all about? And what do you imagine? It's like, oh, I just remember being about 8 to 10 years old, taking care of my parents, and it's very pitch black outside, worried about crime, getting robbed or whatever. And I'm just biting my nails to lower the fear and anxiety.
Yeah.
So,
Coping.
so there's
That's how
so
you were
much, yeah.
coping.
So this was maybe my first one. And obviously we're at home, but we also got TV. So we're
Mhm.
every TV show that you can imagine,
Yep.
we're watching to start off the numbing effect.
Yes. Yes. Also, the pantry. Every sugar cereal you can imagine. Sam and I have a joke because we also the other thing we have in common is we were going through a divorce at the same time. I think you got divorced first, and we were coming home from Big Bear with a friend, female, and it was one of the times I think I've laughed the hardest in my life, where I my stomach was hurting so hard because Sam and I were talking about how we used to ask our wives for permission to buy sugar cereal, and that and I thought I was the only one. He's like, no, me too. And it was just like a silly moment. But I remember I was laughing. So Sam was driving, he almost crashed. And I remember the woman in the back, she was like, what the fuck did I get myself into? Who are these people? Who are these clowns? And I was in the front seat riding shotgun. I was laughing so hard I had to get out of my seat and kneel forward. So I'm kneeling forward, bent over in pain, laughing. Sam is laughing so hard that the car is swerving. And then our
You
poor
told me to pay
friend,
attention to the to
yeah, we're coming
driving.
down the hill, coming down the mountain, and our poor friend in the back was just like, "What the fuck is going?" She did no laughing. She didn't understand our jokes. But I'm saying this because it reminds me of yeah, the sugar cereal, and growing up in the
Unbridled
'80s.
freedom.
Yes,
Unbridled
junk
freedom.
food, access to anything.
Anything,
Yeah,
anything you wanted. So then my one of our friends had scrambled TV. I don't know if
hmm
your listeners know what that is, but scrambled TV is an
cable.
access to unpaid subscriptions.
Yes,
But
when
it's
cable first came
scrambled
out.
in the sense that the image is blurred out. You can't
Yep,
really see it, or you see
yep,
a little bit of it, but you
yep.
can still hear it. So I remember we would come across something that was Playboy or erotic or
Mm,
with disco themes, and man, 10, 11, 12, I don't know, but it was like, whoa, what is that? Everything is like, and obviously puberty is hitting, so it
yes,
felt like this
yes.
lock in the key where I was just entranced. If I thought I was entranced with regular TV or video games and Legos or Star Wars, now with puberty, this was like, oh man, this was it.
Were you able to see enough where you're like, oh, that's a boob, or oh, that's, or was it so scrambled that it was more of the noises, the sex noises that fascinated you?
In the 70s or 80s porn music.
Yeah, but people were making
it
sex
was
noises. It
it
wasn't
was the
that
combination
wasn't
of
the music.
the
Watching,
disco. It was a combination of everything. It was the trifecta.
yeah,
Because prior to that, I didn't have video. The only thing I had, I remember our parents would get like JC Penney's,
right,
whatever those
right.
department store catalogs, and you might be able to come across like the lingerie section, but
Yeah,
that was it, right? It's
right.
not really, there's a lot of mental energy to have to go into that fantasy world, whereas now you actually see it, or kind of see it, and you hear it. And yeah, that was like the perfect storm to getting
I
hooked.
wonder if because it was scrambled and because you're watching something you shouldn't be watching, that was part of the high. Do you know what I'm saying? You're
The
doing
yeah,
something bad. Part of the dopamine, part of the high was to, because like for me the same thing, to be in my dad's room and put on TV or select TV, and it was playing the Playboy channel while they were at work and doing something I wasn't supposed to be doing, was that kind of that element of danger is partly what drew me to it.
yeah, there was the thrill knowing that we shouldn't be watching this,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
our brains are getting a little bit of a more than a little bit. It's getting a high because
yeah.
there's something that we knew developmentally it's not sinking right at the, let's say,
You don't even know what
appropriate
you're watching,
age.
right? But also, you're right, puberty. So we're very curious. This is when you are putting your penis in the in anything, vacuums, fucking, plums, anything this is when people are putting, kids are putting peanut butter on their balls to get their dogs to, like, anything to feel something, because they're so curious about sex but they're not ready for sex. So this is the wonder years.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and so you and I both kind of numbing, escaping, coping, because we were latchkey kids in the 80s.
And keep in mind, not just numbing because our parents are not around. That is one element. And for me, obviously, the fear of crime and what have you. But there's also what's next. Like,
Mm,
our parents are working. There's no talk about life. Like, these fears are growing with each what's the right word? Each transition time. I remember feeling very anxious from elementary school to middle school because
yeah.
once again, I'm the oldest in the family. Nobody's ever gone to school in the US. I'm going to be the first to go graduate from college and so on and so forth. And now I got like six different classes. I got locker combination, six different teachers, middle school. Okay, now I got high school. Now I have college. I have a future. All I hear from my parents are, "Oh, hey, just get good grades."
Yep. Yep.
What's the other lecturing thing that they would say? Oh, don't hang around bad people. Yeah, that's it. That's my blueprint for life. Just get good grades. Don't hang out with bad people.
Oh
Like,
man,
what's
it's
my
funny, but
life
it's
to
so
be?
sad.
And I don't think we fit into the Asian stereotype. I wasn't really that good of a student, at least not when it
No,
came to
that's it. Hey,
traditional
that's another place where we
traditional
overlap. We're both idiots. We're both
Yes,
academically
yes.
not smart.
We're not STEM oriented, the science, technology, engineering, math. We're not that. So it's like, oh my gosh, I see my friends doing well, and I'm like, and now I'm seeing my grades starting to plummet in these math and
Mm-hmm.
sciences, and
Yeah.
I'm not even interested in it either. Now,
Yeah. Me
and
too.
then my
Me too.
parents are telling me like, hey, we have friends whose sons and daughters, they're engineers, they're
Yep.
doctors,
Harvard,
they're
that kind of
business
stuff. Yep.
people,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, "What about you, Sam?" So now they're starting to say something about my future, and I'm like, uh, that doesn't sound like me, Mom,
Yeah.
Dad. I don't know how to voice that. I now have some deep insecurities about who I
Mm,
am as a person, as a don't forget the masculinity side as a man, but who
yeah.
am I to grow into? All these fears and insecurities. And,
Yeah.
pornography at the time was a great way to continue to numb it out.
Yeah.
Pornography, I say pornography, but there's a lot of things. I'm biting my nails, listening to hours on music.
Mm-hmm.
At one time, I would just play basketball by myself oh, not one time, countless hours playing basketball by myself in the rain in Seattle because it was just a way to just escape. There's just so
Yes.
much
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if I've used the word fear and insecurity enough, but there's a lot of that.
And this didn't stop, because then
No,
you did grow up, right? And then you
geez.
started, like me, running toward the picket fence, and you got married, and you were I was gonna say weatherman. You weren't a weatherman, but you were a news anchor, and you had a very respectable job. Weren't you also, like,
Reporter.
a reporter? Weren't you also nominated for an Emmy, or you got started getting awards,
I
and you were
I won a
living a
couple
life
of
that was very, like, on
Emmys,
paper, very, very successful?
but even before that, I remember when I first started off as a cub reporter, I was very scared because I was like, okay, I'm making no money here in the middle of nowhere, which was Montana, but I was working as a reporter and I just felt this crushing weight. And I told myself, it was more passive suicidal thoughts. I'd rather be dead than
Mm,
return home to Seattle not having, quote, succeeded in this
right.
career in television journalism. So that was actually when it finally started taking off. Because I don't remember, like in college, I was just like too busy, once again, maybe numbing out with partying and what have you. But it wasn't until my first job in Montana. I'm lonely, I'm by myself. I got these fears of performing because it's my first journalism job. Am I even going to make it in this career? That was the very first time, I think it was 20, 21 or 22, whatever. Finally entered my very first quote adult bookstore and just loaded up on a bunch of magazines.
Yeah, sure.
It was such a great way of just numbing out and not having to worry about the day-to-day grind and how awful. Keep in mind, I was, when you first start off at any career, but especially one as public as television news reporting,
Yeah.
if you go to a smaller city, it's just awful. I mean, I was awful. I'll just use I language.
You're a
And so I could
therapist.
never see myself going from here. Look how awful I am on TV, the way I look, the way I sound.
No.
Just sounds like just a B-rate college newscast, and envisioning myself in a bigger city.
So you weren't happy, and you were very I don't know, criticizing and judgmental on yourself. And then came divorce, and of course, with divorce is more shame, more stigma, more labels.
Oh yeah, this was in the early 2000, what is 2001 or whatever that time frame was. So I was amongst all my Asian peers growing up. I only knew one other Asian person that got divorced.
Mm. What was it like for
So
you to
I
get divorced?
knew,
And it also wasn't your idea, right? Did your ex-wife bounced, or whose idea was it to divorce?
oh, so once again, it just escalated as as the job requirements got more intense, right?
Hmm.
I'm working in Los Angeles, the pressure, it doesn't get easier when you get to a bigger city, right? More pressure to perform. Didn't want to screw up. And so I think I remember every night just going home, drowning myself out in more pornography. And one night she just woke up, saw me doing it, screamed,
Mm.
and we separated, did a little bit of couples counseling, but at the end of the day, that was too overwhelming for her. And yeah, it was excruciating because I thought we were just gonna live, die, whatever. I had envisioned a life with her, not just her, but also her family, because they were Americanized. Keep in mind, she was in a Korean
No.
American whose family was more Americanized. Her parents were educated out here, so I could talk to them. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? I
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
had
yeah.
relationship with them,
Right. It wasn't superficial. It was like real relationships, blended
and it
family.
feels shameful. I don't know if shameful to say, but kind of embarrassing to say. But I felt like I was much closer to my then mother-in-law than to my
Sure.
own mom,
Yeah, of course. I get
partly
that.
because of the
The
ability
language.
to talk in
Yeah.
English,
Yeah.
but also because she was educated here. She went to grad school in the U.S. She understood that it made sense that I had to move around the country
Yep.
to 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 do what I had to do back then. Whereas my mom
Hmm.
would say, "Why don't you just work at this TV station in Seattle?"
Right. Right.
Right out of college. So yeah,
So
that was really
that's
painful,
about when
and
I met you,
those
right?
are
Divorce. Maybe a year or two after your divorce is when I met you.
yeah. Was I in grad school yet, or just thinking about it?
You were in. I think you were in grad school. Yeah, because you were
Okay.
already. I think you were even past that because you were getting your hours, or you were just finishing grad
Oh,
school,
okay,
getting your
okay.
hours. And
Yeah,
we
but
kind of met each other at our kind of our lowest points of our lives.
I may have been low. It may have been you've gotten even lower right around that. I can't remember right around that time because I thought the pornography was the low point or the
Hmm.
divorce was the low point.
Hmm.
But there are times of really struggle post divorce where I didn't know what was to become of me. Maybe I was still going to
Right.
therapy or training to be a therapist, but relationally, the level of rejection was so high. I remember whenever there were a few times where I was able to go overseas, what have you, and I would hire escorts,
Hmm.
prostitutes, what have you, and
Hmm.
that felt very low
Yeah.
because
The shame behind
who
that, and
knows if these women, I think some of these women may have been sex trafficked as well
right.
before
Right.
sex trafficking was even really known. And so that was very, uh, I think, in hindsight, very crushing to know I'm both a perpetrator, right?
Mm-hmm.
Perpetrator to a certain degree. Um,
Because you're participating, you mean?
yeah, I'm
Hiring? Yeah.
participating in these acts. At the time, I thought it was everything's consensual. I pay money, but I was very naive. But yeah, I
So let
think
me,
once I got there, it felt very low, quote low.
yeah. So let me ask you this. Most of your life, I mean, this book is called Passport to Shame. So just living with shame since, being a little Chinese boy, and, thank you for being so honest and sharing your story. I can relate to, I mean, you're almost like a doppelganger, not because you look like me, but because we have such similar stories. Um, how did you now? Because I want to start turning this around. How did you start dissolving, scraping shame? How did you start working on this so it just is it doesn't become the monster that follows you around? You know?
It's still a work in progress. I think it happened in stages. Part of it was getting help. Finally, as an
Yeah,
Asian ethnic person, to say I need help,
yeah.
that's a huge breakthrough. To actually walk through the doors of a therapist and talk to a therapist was, I think, very instrumental. I think through the years, um, I don't know if these concepts seems too fluffy, but learning to love myself
Hmm.
regardless, right?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Warts and all. And this
Yeah.
is it. I just saw, no pun intended, I saw that movie, Dumb Money, the other day, about the whole GameStop stock market
No, I
thing.
haven't seen it, but okay.
But anyways, there's a line where he tells the main character, his brother, dude, you just gotta go run with your dick out.
Uh-huh.
Meaning, forget, stop hiding from the media. Just be out there. And I
Yeah.
was like, you know what? No
That's
pun
how I've been
intended.
living my
I just
life for the
decided
last 15 years, or
I'm
just
just
running with
gonna
my
run
dick
with my
out.
dick out.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah,
run
yeah.
with my dick out. I'm just gonna own it. So maybe this is a little bit of you and me, like just having the courage to be unabashed. Because as you know, I'm more traditional. I'm not really one
Hmm.
to self-disclose a lot.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I just told my therapist the other week, I'm wrestling with a little bit, but I'm starting to say, forget it. I'm just gonna go out balls out
Mm.
and just, who cares if people know my story? But the people who know my story are are going to need the story. And if I
Yeah.
don't share the story, how are they ever possibly going to get the help that they possibly need?
And also, shame lives in secrecy, and so I gotta. I can imagine. I mean, I write books. You writing this book, sharing your story in a way, must have been very therapeutic. Must have been very kind of letting things go, and also, the idea of our stories helping other people then makes our story bigger than us. There's there's a spiritual part to this too.
There was a lot of there were some tears shed in writing some parts of this book. And
Yeah,
this was not the book I envisioned. When I first started, the publisher, I gave them the draft, they liked it, but immediately they wanted to shift it. So 80% of it was more like just
prescriptive.
cerebral stuff, like
Yeah, yeah,
Asian
yeah.
this, Asian
Right,
that,
right,
very generic.
right.
And then the 20%, if that was my story,
Oh,
they said, we
and
want
they
to flip this. We want to
yeah,
make this more 80 to 90% your story, a little bit about
yeah.
generic Asian dynamics. I'm like, what? I didn't like that at all.
Well, because then you had to share, yeah.
Yeah, so even promoting this book is difficult, but I talked a little bit about how I do some poetry. This might answer the question of how did I work through the shame. This one's titled Redefining My
Holy
Shame.
shit! Warning! Here comes. Okay, here goes one of Sam's
Reading
poems about to drop.
spoken, not broken, healing through poetry.
Here we go. Let's hear
Redefining
it.
my
Let's hear
shame.
it. Okay,
Okay.
let's hear it.
I used to hate my shame, run away from it, hide from it, ignore it, deny it, pretend it's not there. Now, like a parent to a child, I embrace it. No more shame in naming it, sharing it, using it to my advantage, helping others heal. Where I once whimpered, I now boldly proclaim it. Where I once drowned in it, I've now harnessed it. Like a mule, use it as a tool, redefined it. No longer a soul crusher, use my shame, a light for others to escape self blame.
Mm.
So just finding
Um.
a way to reframe, redefine it. I think that's
Yeah.
been another
Yeah.
aspect of the healing.
Absolutely. I mean, starting with owning it, um, not letting it have power over you by keeping it secret. So, you writing a book about it, being on my podcast, you talking about your story. In a way, that is owning it, embracing it, and then there's a tipping point when you start to share it, where it comes bigger than you. So yeah, I think that's huge with shame. Do you struggle today with shame? What is your relationship with shame, and how is it impacting you today? As a family now, you're a husband, you're a
Yeah.
father. You have a full practice. You've got tons of clients. Um, or have you it doesn't you don't feel shame much anymore? Where are you today with shame?
No, I think the shame is still there in that I wish it was a different sort of a quote addiction, right? I wish it
Mm.
was alcoholism. You know,
Why? Because you can't
s-
put your finger on it, or you can't see it. You can't count the
well,
bottles.
if you're saying I'm a recovering alcoholic, there's less shame because it's just the sexual piece. It's
Oh,
just
you're saying okay
so
with sex. Yeah.
yeah, our sexual piece. It's such a what's the right word? Such a vulnerable part of who we
Yeah,
are,
of course, of
right?
course.
And
Yeah.
to say that, like, yeah, starting as young as this, I struggled. uh, it's not a very masculine part of it. It's not very masculine. It feels more masculine to say I've been hooked on drugs or alcohol, but to say I
Mm.
struggled with sexual imagery and masturbation and
Yeah,
pornography,
yeah, yeah,
up to prostitutes and escorts, it just
yeah.
feels very, um,
Dirty
yeah,
and wrong and
yeah.
gross. Yeah, yeah.
The morality piece gets in there too, and obviously morality was a part of the shame for the early alcoholics, right? They were viewed as people who had moral issues. Something's
But
wrong with you
don't you think
morally.
today, especially because I had a similar experience with my ex-wife, where got a lot of judgment and labels slapped on me because I had a video on my computer, and it was one video. But back then, I think the judgment and the shame was much. It had a more of a grip than I think
Oh,
today, where.
sure.
Especially with just kind of fluidity, openness, sexuality, and what we're into, whether it's kink or whatever,
Right.
it's not so confined. People aren't judging as much anymore. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think
Mainstream
sex addiction.
America,
Well, yeah, maybe
mainstream
maybe because
America,
we
but
live in big
we're still
cities.
in our Asian ethnic. In my head, I'm still in the Asian ethnic
Oh,
culture and
got it, got
community,
it.
and that's still yeah. I mean, I think I could speak to any white audience. It doesn't matter. But
Yeah,
once we get to a more ethnic audience, that level of shame does creep up a little bit
yeah,
more.
yeah. I get that. I understand
You
that.
know,
Hey, I know you have a ton of clients, and I know we're pretty much out of time. Um, I just want to say that I'm really proud of you, because we fuck around a lot, we joke a lot, we make fun of each other, we're very
yeah.
competitive, whatever. But all jokes aside, Sam, I'm really proud of you for writing this book, man, and I'm really proud of where you're at in your life. Um, I can't say a lot about the three wheel motorcycle you bought, the Harley with three wheels. Yeah, I'm gonna just gonna leave that no comments.
It
But
looks just like yours, but has a third wheel.
okay, so we're gonna. I don't even know it's a motorcycle or a car because it has three wheels. But other than that, Sam, you're doing a lot of important work, and I'm really proud of you, man. Because I was with you when we had nothing, man. All we had was frozen yogurt in our hands. We had, we're trying to pick up girls, and then we discovered CrossFit, and God, we're just complaining about our life and job, and we're just like drifting in Los Angeles with no broken, just
We
aimless.
didn't have much materially, but remember, we didn't even have a TV. We consciously said no TV because we wanted to be able to grow, go to coffee shops, read, learn. But I do remember one thing you said, that still resonates today. Like, we don't have much, right? Materially, we lost everything relationally, divorce, and so on,
Yeah, for
so
sure.
on and so forth. But what we do have is we are now changed. This is a
I said that.
before. Yeah, you said something like
Oh, wow.
we are now forever changed. because of this experience. And I'm not saying people have to go through a divorce to go through this experience,
Right.
but
Right.
people are going through other crises or other what's the right word? Life altering experiences
Mm-hmm.
that there's going to be that before and after. So I
Right.
realized, like, man, even though we don't have much, we are never back to who we used to be. And
Right.
that's
Right.
a good thing, is what you
Yeah,
had
of
mentioned.
course.
Like,
It's
oh,
valuable. Yeah.
that's,
I don't
yeah, it's
remember
like, you're
saying that.
right.
And thank God I didn't say we don't have much, but all we have is each other. Thank God I didn't say that. But yeah, I agree that the refusal to be who you used to be has value and worth. And so we were both on a path of in our hero's journey and just going through it, man. And I don't know if I could have done it without you, Sam. I mean, you were such a pivotal part of that because you brought humor, you brought lightness, you brought, because we were lonely too. We were in a heartbreak motel in K Town, and in a way, all we kind of had was each other, and so all those lonely nights of just kind of hanging out, talking, doing whatever, I think got us through, all those.
It was a great synergy. Yeah, it was a great
Yeah.
synergy to be able to have your creative juices just emanating.
Well, thank you.
And I think I picked up on, when you look at the yin and yang, there's still a little bit of the other color on the both
Oh, sure.
the
Yeah.
black side has a little bit of
Right.
the
Right.
white has a little bit of black.
Right.
So
Right.
you're oozing creativity and extroversion and self what do you call it? Self disclosure. So there's a
Yeah.
little bit of that in what I try to do that's been inspired by you. So I
Oh,
really
thanks.
appreciate your ability to really, like, when I first met you and I saw some of those videos, my classmates in marriage and family therapy, like, please tell me he's not a therapist. I said, why? He really
The
is.
the one with me at the Valentine's Day where I'm shooting
The
the target.
Valentine's Day one.
Oh God, that was so
Yeah.
inappropriate. I would have gotten
but
canceled.
but it just speaks to your ability to just be so out there, right? And
Dude,
it's
I
like,
was running with my dick out.
you,
I was running with my dick out because I
yes,
had nothing else, man, except my blog and my stories. All I
I
had.
think that's the best way to end it. For the two of us, we'll continue running with our dicks out.
That's what this episode is going to be called, "Running with Our Dicks Out" with
Running
John
with
and
our dicks
Sam.
out. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. I like
All
that.
right, let's do it. Well, hey,
Okay,
congrats on the book. Hey, where can we pick up this
appreciate
book?
it.
It's wide. Amazon.
My publisher said it's supposed to be at regular bookstores like Barnes and Noble, but obviously it's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble,
Nice.
all the
Yep.
online retailers. Yeah. So
Um, it's an important book. Check it out. Passport to Shame. It's not only Sam's story, but he's also a licensed therapist, so he's very smart and has lots of great things to say. And shame is universal. It doesn't matter what color your
yeah.
skin is. So yeah, check that out. And Sam, thank you for being on my podcast. Great seeing your face.
Thanks, John. And I
All right, brother.
appreciate everything that you've been doing.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. All right,
Okay.
Sam. Love you. Be
Take care.
well, man. Bye.
Yep. Likewise.